Today's story takes us thousands of miles away from the hills of Yorkshire to Nagoya in central Japan, a country known for its safety, its quiet neighbourhoods, and some of the lowest crime rates in the whole world. But even there, some crimes leave questions that linger for decades. This is one of them. It's a story about obsession, a chance reunion, and a mystery that remained unsolved for more than 25 years. Our story begins in the early 1970s. At a high school in Nagoya lived a teenage lad named Satoru Tabaka. By all accounts, Satoru was polite, friendly, and well liked. He spent most of his free time playing tennis for the school's tennis club, and it was there he met another student. Her name was Kumiko Yasufuku. At first, nothing seemed unusual. The two were teammates. Kumiko was quite competitive and by all accounts a pretty good tennis player. They practiced together, travelled to matches, and occasionally spoke after training. But before long, Kumiko wanted something a bit more. She asked Satoru if he would be her boyfriend. Shocked but feeling a bit awkward, he politely turned her down. For most people, that would have been the end of it. Most people would have run away from embarrassment. But for Kumiko, she didn't. Instead, she became increasingly obsessed with him. She did really weird things like sending him chocolates on Valentine's Day, wrote him love letters every week, and watched him from afar. Sometimes she would wait outside after tennis practice, hoping to walk home with him. Satoru, being a polite kid, never wanted to be rude, so every now and again he agreed. But he never wanted a relationship. To him, they were simply classmates, no more. Eventually, school came to an end. The year was 1975. And like millions of teenagers do, they graduated. They went their separate ways and began completely different lives. As far as Satoru was concerned, that chapter of his life was well over, and he assumed he'd never hear Kumiko's name ever again. Nearly 25 years passed. Life moved on. Satoru built the future he had always hoped for. He married a beautiful woman named Namiko, known to her friends and family as Nami. Together, they settled in Nagoya. By 1999, they had a 2-year-old son, and life was stable and financially pretty comfortable. The couple had recently bought a new condo. They were even talking about having another kid. In a nutshell, Nami was completely in love with Satoru, and so was he. Meanwhile, Kumiko had built her own life. She had married, she had children, and from the outside, everything appeared normal. But deep down, she was fed up with cooking, with cleaning, and taking care of her family. Then one day came an invitation. A reunion for members of their old high school tennis club. As she read it, her heart skipped a beat. It had been decades since Kumiko had last seen Satoru, and this chance was quite possibly her last. She decided to go, and so did Satoru. When Kumiko arrived at the venue, she saw him through the crowds of people, and nervously walked over. They chatted like old classmates. To Satoru, it was simply a pleasant conversation with someone he hadn't seen for years. No more. After the evening was over, he returned home to his wife and carried on like normal. However, for Kumiko, it had a very different impact on her. Old feelings that should have disappeared decades earlier had suddenly returned. And this time, they seemed stronger than ever. After the reunion, Kumiko became consumed by thoughts of Satoru once again. She began trying to learn everything she could about his life. Where he lived, where he worked, when he was likely to be away from home, which cafes and which restaurants he liked to frequent, and most importantly, who stood between her and the life she believed she should have. That person was Nami. It was Saturday the 13th of November 1999. For Satoru and his family, it began like any other weekend. He left home to go to work. Nami stayed behind at their apartment with their 2-year-old son. Earlier that day, she had taken him to a doctor's appointment before returning home. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Neighbours later remembered it was a quiet afternoon. No shouting, no disturbance, nothing. Just another peaceful day in Nagoya. At some point after returning home, Kumiko came to the apartment. She knocked on the door, and Nami answered. Being polite and friendly, she opened the door and let her in. What happened next was both sudden and incredibly violent. Kumiko pulled out a knife and repeatedly stabbed Nami. Most of the wounds were to her neck. Investigators would later describe the attack as deliberate and ferocious. During the struggle, Kumiko also suffered a cut on her own hand. Even more heartbreaking, Nami's 2-year-old son was inside the apartment throughout the whole attack. Thankfully, he was physically unharmed. After the attack, Kumiko simply walked away, leaving behind a horrifying scene. Hours later, the landlord's wife arrived at the apartment carrying some fruit for the family, which is rather typical in Asian countries. She noticed the front door was unlocked and ajar. When she stepped inside, she made the devastating discovery. Nami lay dead on the floor. Her young son was still in there beside her. Police rushed to the scene. A trail of blood led away from the apartment, suggesting the killer had been injured. Officers followed it as far as they could. Police dogs were brought in. Searches were launched across the area, but the trail simply disappeared. The person responsible had vanished, and with them, any obvious explanation for why this young mother had been targeted. The investigation began immediately. Police searched the apartment from top to bottom. Among the evidence they recovered, there were 2 types of blood. One belonged to Nami, the other belonged to Kumiko. It was a crucial piece of evidence. The blood revealed that the suspect was a woman with type B blood. Police also recovered a shoe print measuring around 24 centimetres. Despite interviewing hundreds of people and following countless leads, they couldn't identify who the blood belonged to. DNA technology simply wasn't advanced enough. The investigation slowly began to stall. As the months turned into years, new theories started to emerge. Some believed Nami herself had been the target. Others thought the real target may have been her mother, who had previously been convicted in a fraud case involving fake cancer treatments. Her mother had been planning to move in with the family days before. With no arrests, the case slowly went cold. But one person refused to let it be forgotten. Satoru, Nami's loving husband. He moved out of the apartment with his young son, but he made a decision that would leave people across Japan stunned. He refused to clean the apartment. He left every bloodstain exactly where it was. Every piece of evidence remained untouched. Month after month, year after year, he continued paying the rent on an empty apartment. Many people thought he should let it go, but Satoru believed one thing. One day, science would catch up, and when it did, the blood left behind by his wife's killer would finally reveal the truth. Not for months, not for years, but for more than a quarter of a century. Satoru would even hand out flyers on a regular basis to people and passers-by to try and find out information of possible leads. For 26 years, the case remained one of Japan's greatest unsolved mysteries. The blood found at the apartment sat quietly in police storage, waiting. Then in 2024, the investigation took a dramatic turn. Detectives began taking another look at people connected to the case. One name caught their attention: Kumiko Yasufuku, the woman who had stalked him all the way back in high school. Police asked her to provide a DNA sample, and at first she refused. But after a few months, guilt consumed her. She changed her mind. She walked into a police station voluntarily and agreed to give a sample. When the results came back, there was no doubt. Her DNA matched the blood that had been left behind at the crime scene 25 years earlier. The evidence Satoru had preserved for all those years had finally done exactly what he believed it would. Kumiko was then arrested. She later admitted to killing Nami. Investigators said she had spent decades living in fear that the police would eventually come for her. She reportedly told detectives, "I was anxious every day." She said that every year, around the anniversary of the murder, she would become depressed. For 26 years, she had carried the secret alone. Today, she has been formally charged with Nami's murder. But despite the confession, one question still lingers. Why? Police believe jealousy was the driving force, that Kumiko had never truly let go of her feelings for Satoru. Anyway, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed my story, something a bit different today, and I hope you will subscribe and leave a like, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.